Now let's move on to the controversy surrounding Sydney Sweeney's American Eagle ads and Lizzo.
Sydney Sweeney walked onto the red carpet like a total star. You know, that effortless glam, cameras going off, everyone cheering. For a second, it looked like just another Hollywood moment. But then boom, out of nowhere, someone yells from the crowd, accusing her of promoting racism, all because of a jeans ad. Yeah, a jeans ad.
Genes are passed down from parents to offspring, often determining traits like hair color, personality, and even eye color.
What started as this cheeky, light-hearted American Eagle campaign suddenly turned into a full-blown firestorm, not just online, but right there in real life. And honestly, that was just the tip of the iceberg, because then, the internet exploded, political figures got involved, and even Donald Trump had something to say once he found out Sydney's political leanings.
I think her ad is fantastic.
The president is fawning over the actor after her voter registration was revealed.
It's wild how fast things spiraled, from denim to division, fashion to full-on culture war. So how did a simple ad turn into one of the most unexpected controversies of the year? Stick around, because what happened next says a lot about the world we're living in, and it might just change the way you look at celebrity, branding, and even something as basic as a pair of jeans. The ad that sparked it all. It all started with 6 simple words: Sydney Sweeney has great jeans. That was the tagline splashed across American Eagle's latest ad campaign, a bold, cheeky headline meant to grab attention. The visuals were exactly what you'd expect from a major youth brand. Sydney Sweeney, the breakout star of Euphoria, posing in laid-back denim, sunlight on her face, that signature all-American smile, confident, effortless, flirty. It was the kind of campaign that usually gets a few likes, some compliments, and then fades quietly into the ever-scrolling feed. But this one didn't fade. It blew up, fast. At first, people joked about the double meaning, the wordplay on jeans and jeans, but it didn't take long for the tone online to shift. TikTokers began stitching the ad into angry reactions, calling it tone-deaf and weirdly coded.
Sydney Sweeney's new ad is deeply unsettling to me.
It's a problem when white people try to say that the superior gene is blonde hair and blue eyes.
Twitter threads broke down every detail, the slogan, the imagery, the timing, suggesting that this wasn't just a cute denim drop, but a subtle nod to exclusivity, privilege, and even racial undertones. Some users accused the campaign of glorifying white, Eurocentric beauty standards. Others went further, claiming the phrase played into eugenics-era rhetoric, that the compliment about her great genes wasn't just about style, but a quiet dog whistle about bloodlines. Wild? Maybe. But in the age of internet outrage, nuance dies quickly. The narrative took on a life of its own. Suddenly, Sydney, who wasn't the creative director, who didn't write the copy, who was literally just modeling clothes, became the face of an ideological firestorm. Videos dissecting her political leanings, family history, even facial expressions began circulating with millions of views. Entire comment sections became war zones. People weren't just criticizing the ad, they were building entire theories around it, painting Sydney as either the innocent target of cancel culture or a calculated player in a broader culture war. What was supposed to be a light, flirty fashion statement had become a flashpoint for everything from body politics to white privilege. And without saying a single word, Sydney Sweeney found herself in the middle of a controversy that was anything but cute. The accusations start rolling in. The backlash didn't take long to explode. TikTok lit up with videos accusing the American Eagle ad of being implicitly racist, claiming the slogan and styling echoed harmful stereotypes about beauty, privilege, and the glorification of whiteness. It started with a few side-eye reactions and quickly escalated into full-blown breakdowns. Influencers and activists began dissecting the campaign frame by frame, questioning why Sydney was chosen, why the phrase "great genes" felt loaded, and why certain body types and skin tones seemed absent. Some even took it further, suggesting there were subtle undertones of white supremacy baked into the concept, a not-so-subtle nod to good genes, genetics, and legacy. In a wild twist, a few voices online began throwing around the word eugenics, accusing the ad of echoing a disturbing past, all under the mask of playful branding. What began as harmless fashion commentary had now transformed into a cultural autopsy. Entire threads picked apart the shoot location, lighting, color palette, and even the typography, asking what message it was really sending. Was it a stretch? Maybe, but in today's outrage economy, once a narrative catches fire, there's no easy way to put it out. American Eagle, for their part, didn't back down. In a carefully worded statement, the brand stood firmly behind Sydney in the campaign, insisting the ad was about her personal story, her individuality, and yes, her jeans. No hidden messages, they claimed. No political agenda. Just denim. But by then, the damage was done. The comment sections were already at war. To some, the statement sounded tone-deaf. To others, it was refreshing. But to most, it didn't matter, because the internet had already made up its mind. The narrative had shifted, the lines were drawn, and Sydney Sweeney was no longer just modeling jeans. She had become a symbol, whether she asked for it or not. And things were only getting messier from here. The premiere that got ugly. By the time Sydney Sweeney arrived at the Americana premiere, the controversy was already following her like a shadow she couldn't shake. Dressed in a soft yellow gown that made her look like she'd stepped out of a fairy tale, she stepped out of her black SUV with the kind of poise you'd expect from a rising Hollywood star. Cameras clicked, fans screamed her name, but there was a tension in the air, the kind that doesn't show up in photographs. It was calm before the storm, and the storm came quickly. As she walked toward the entrance, flanked by security and surrounded by flashing lights, a woman's voice suddenly cut through the noise, loud, angry, and impossible to ignore. "Stop the ad, that is being racist." The heckler wasn't visible, but her voice rang out across the venue like a siren. It sliced through the glamour, sucking the oxygen out of the moment. For a split second, everything seemed to freeze. Heads turned, a few gasps. Someone nearby muttered, "Is this really happening?" And yet, Sydney didn't flinch. No reaction, no pause. Just a quiet, composed walk through the chaos, her expression unreadable, her posture unshaken. She didn't acknowledge the heckler, didn't look back, didn't rush. It was a masterclass in self-control, or maybe just survival, because in that moment, the contrast couldn't have been more jarring. The poised actress moving through a storm of public rage, calm on the surface while the crowd buzzed with tension. The scene captured everything this controversy had become: loud, public, and impossible to escape. And while Sydney kept her cool on the outside, the message was written all over the moment. This wasn't just internet drama anymore. It had spilled into real life, and it was far from over. Trump enters the chat. Just when the drama seemed like it couldn't get any stranger, Donald Trump entered the chat. During a routine press stop, the former president was asked about the Sydney Sweeney ad and the backlash that had taken over social media. At first, he brushed it off, unfamiliar with the details, seemingly uninterested. But then a reporter mentioned something that changed everything. Sydney Sweeney had been revealed as a registered Republican. That's all it took. Trump's expression shifted, and with a smirk, he delivered a soundbite tailor-made for headlines. "Now I love her ad." And just like that, the narrative flipped on its head. What had started as a viral backlash over a fashion campaign suddenly became something much bigger and far more polarizing. The left, who had criticized the ad for being tone-deaf and racially insensitive, doubled down on their stance, accusing Sydney of aligning herself with a broader, more dangerous agenda. Meanwhile, conservative voices rallied behind her. Social media lit up with praise, calling her brave, unapologetic, even a conservative role model in liberal Hollywood. Right-wing influencers jumped on the story, spinning the ad as an unintentional act of rebellion against woke culture. Sydney's political identity, something she had never openly flaunted, never posted about, never discussed in interviews, was suddenly front and center. Her silence, once seen as strategic neutrality, now looked like quiet alignment. And with Trump's public stamp of approval, her name was no longer just tied to a pair of jeans. It was tied to a movement. The fashion campaign had morphed into a cultural statement, or at least that's what the world decided. Whether she meant it or not, whether she agreed or not, didn't seem to matter anymore. In a matter of minutes, Sydney Sweeney went from actress and brand ambassador to a political Rorschach test, with people projecting onto her everything they wanted to believe. And in the middle of it all, she stayed silent, as the noise around her only got louder. The internet explodes again. Trump's offhand comment should have been the end of it. A quick headline, a viral clip, and then onto the next news cycle. But instead, it lit the internet on fire again. Within hours, social media turned into a battleground. TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram were flooded with hot takes, reaction videos, and dueling narratives. Some rallied behind Sydney with even more enthusiasm, calling her a breath of fresh air in a town full of conformity. They praised her for staying silent, interpreting it as strength, a refusal to bow to the mob. Fan edits poured in, turning her into a kind of modern-day anti-hero, and conservative commentators crowned her the new face of Hollywood rebellion, someone who wasn't afraid to be different in a world that punishes dissent. But not everyone saw it that way. Critics came back even louder, now with what they believed was proof of where she stood. They accused her of hiding behind a polished image while subtly signaling to a particular political base. Phrases like dog whistle, coded messaging, and white feminism started dominating the conversation. Some labeled her silence as complicity, claiming that neutrality in a time of cultural division was in itself a choice. And just like that, Sydney Sweeney, someone who had never publicly made a political statement, became a symbol of everything people loved or hated about the current cultural climate. The divide between her fans and her detractors grew sharper, deeper, and more emotionally charged, like two different worlds watching the same person and seeing completely different things. The original ad was no longer the issue. It had become the backdrop to a much bigger conversation about identity, politics, influence, and the price of being famous in a hyper-politicized world. And through it all, Sydney said nothing. No tweet, no statement, no comment, just silence, while millions of voices argued, speculated, praised, and condemned. Whether she liked it or not, Sydney wasn't just trending, she had become a cultural lightning rod. And the storm was far from over. The bigger picture, when ads turn political, at its core, it was just a clothing ad, denim, a catchy tagline, and a familiar face. Nothing controversial, nothing political, or at least that's how it was intended. But somehow, it became a lightning rod for something much deeper and far more volatile. In today's hypercharged climate, even the most seemingly harmless branding can get swept into the storm of identity, ideology, and outrage. We're no longer just looking at ads, we're dissecting them, for subtext, for signals, for meaning. Sydney Sweeney didn't speak a single word in the ad. There were no interviews, no political statements, not even a caption, just her, some denim, and a camera. But silence, in this climate, isn't neutral. It's a canvas for projection. And the internet, quick to assume, quicker to judge, filled in the blanks. People saw what they wanted to see. To some, she was a symbol of classic American beauty and confidence. To others, she became a stand-in for outdated ideals, systemic privilege, and even quiet political alignment. One photo shoot, and she was no longer just Sydney the actress, she was Sydney the archetype. That's the world we live in now, a place where ads don't just sell jeans, they signal allegiance, where every word, every image, every celebrity endorsement is seen through the lens of us versus them. Brands can no longer afford to be just brands. Celebrities can no longer just be faces. The public doesn't want passive entertainment anymore, they want alignment. They want to know what you stand for, even if you never said anything. And if you're perceived as standing on the wrong side of the invisible cultural line, the response is immediate and unforgiving. Think pieces, hashtags, boycotts, conspiracies, all within hours. The debate stops being about fashion or messaging. It becomes a referendum on who you are, and whether you deserve the platform you have. It's no longer about the jeans, it's about the battle they accidentally walked into, and who's going to walk away from it with their image intact. Who is Sydney really? This isn't the first time Sydney Sweeney has been at the center of political controversy, and it probably won't be the last. Back in 2022, she caught serious heat after photos surfaced from a family birthday party she threw for her mom. On the surface, it looked innocent enough: balloons, cake, matching t-shirts. But what grabbed the internet's attention wasn't the celebration itself, it was the imagery. Some guests were seen wearing MAGA-style hats and thin blue-line flags, symbols that have become deeply polarizing in American culture. The photos went viral almost instantly. What should have been a personal family moment turned into a trending hashtag and a social media interrogation. The internet quickly pounced, accusing Sydney of revealing her true colors, suggesting that beneath her polished Hollywood image was a quiet alignment with conservative values. Critics claimed the party wasn't just about family, it was a coded political statement. Supporters rushed to her defense, arguing that she shouldn't be held accountable for what her relatives wore, and that the backlash was a perfect example of cancel culture reaching too far. In the middle of the firestorm, Sydney responded, but barely. Her message was brief, calm, and clearly designed not to add fuel to the flames. She said it was just a party for her mom, that people were making assumptions. Then, silence. No further clarification, no interviews, no doubling down. Since then, she's kept her political views almost completely under wraps. No candidate endorsements, no opinion pieces, no tweets about elections or legislation, just quiet. And that quiet has only made the speculation louder. To some, her silence is a form of professionalism, a smart move in a business where speaking out can cost you roles, fans, and brand deals. To others, it feels like a dodge, a way of playing both sides without committing to either. Is she protecting her privacy, avoiding conflict, or is her silence a strategy in itself? A subtle nod to a more conservative audience while maintaining deniability in liberal spaces? Whatever the truth is, one thing is clear. Sydney Sweeney has become a kind of cultural inkblot, a blank slate people project their assumptions onto. And maybe that's exactly how she wants it. Because the more people speculate about who she really is, the more they keep watching. So where does this leave Sydney Sweeney? On one hand, she's facing backlash, online scrutiny, and headlines that have nothing to do with her acting. But on the other, she's more talked about than ever, trending across platforms, gaining new fans, and becoming a symbol of something far bigger than a jeans ad. In Hollywood, controversy doesn't always mean damage. Sometimes it means power, visibility, influence. And for someone like Sydney, who's still climbing the ranks, that kind of attention can open new doors, or quietly close them. Only time will tell if this storm will fade or follow her. But one thing's clear, in today's world, can a pair of jeans really be apolitical anymore? Or is every brand, every image, and every celebrity already part of a bigger battle, whether they like it or not? What do you think? Is Sydney Sweeney being unfairly targeted? Or is this just the cost of fame in 2025? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit like if this gave you a new perspective. And don't forget to subscribe, because in a world where even denim can cause outrage, we're just getting started.